Hi, everyone, and welcome to Workday Chats. I'm Patrick Blair. I'm the president of the Americas business here, and I'm so excited to introduce our guest. Ted Ross is the Chief Information Officer at the City of Los Angeles. And Ted, I know that means a lot, but tell us a little bit about yourself and about the job.
Certainly, Patrick. Thank you for having me. As CIO for the second largest city in the US, as you can imagine, it covers a lot of responsibility. I run the IT department. It has 19 different divisions, everything from traditional IT, computer support, data center applications, to things a lot more progressive and unique, like a call center for the 311 services, or a TV station, an Emmy award-winning one. There's a lot of different aspects of what we cover. It keeps me busy. And if you were to define it in a nutshell, I'd say I deliver digital services to over 4 million Angelinos, 500,000 businesses, and over 48 million people who visit LA.
And Ted, as the CIO in Los Angeles, anything short of an Emmy, I would be very disappointed with you.
Okay.
So before we kind of get into some of the things you and I talked about, would love to learn a little bit about you. So just some rapid fire questions for you if you're ready for it. Tell us, what did you do as a first job?
That's a good question. My very first job, I was a telemarketer for a political campaign. So I had to dial up voters, get them to try to vote for the candidate, see if we can get contributions, et cetera. It was not an easy job. As you can imagine, calling people who were busy doing other things, who were living their life, and trying to get them to talk about this wasn't easy. I took the job, honestly, because it paid 50 cents more per hour than minimum wage. I thought I was really doing well with that. But I really learned something. What I really learned was how to try to give an elevator pitch, how to connect with someone quickly who's not necessarily trying to connect with you, and how to really pitch a product, in this case, a candidate. Fast forward to today as a CIO, and actually I find those skills to be really quite useful even now.
I bet. And when you took that job in the early days, you think you were going to be in maybe a sales role or something? It seems a lot different. The career definitely took a different spin, I would think, than what you originally thought.
Oh, Patrick, I felt like I had a bit of a gift of gab, just a little bit, and I felt I could make a little extra money using it. That's one of those jobs after a 3-hour shift, you walked away with a big headache. And like I said, the ability to help manage stress, the ability to kind of connect with people, I really actually ended up learning a lot, even though it was decades ago.
Wow. So that's a great background. And thanks for playing on that one with us a little bit. Ted, so you and I talked about a recent survey that was saying that 65% of CIOs said that ERP systems aren't flexible enough to meet the needs of today's business environment. You hear a lot of CIOs talking about digital transformation, a journey either they're starting or a journey they're in the middle of. And you also hear a lot about how the world has changed so much, certainly in the last 2 years, but over the last 5 years. So can you speak a little bit to the CIOs in the audience about, those that are thinking about their transformation or in the middle of one? You have such a big organization there that you're kind of managing through your journey. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of that journey and where things have gone and where things are going?
Absolutely. The city of Los Angeles is an $8 billion a year organization. It's a top 100 company if it was private sector. And the reality is we've got 43 different business units, AKA departments, and we have to deliver to 4 million plus Angelinos and many others. So the scale is quite large in a lot of what we deliver. And when we think of digital transformation, we think of leveraging digital tools in ways that actually is unimaginable just 5 or 10 years ago. So number one, it gives us the ability to deliver services previously unimagined. And that goes the same with private sector or public sector. We have so many different tools and so many different capabilities, whether it's a machine learning conversation, AI conversation, cloud, no code, low code, data analysis, big data. There's so many different topics where the capabilities we have today did not exist. So our ability to identify digital opportunities and apply them into our business areas is completely transformational. Secondly, the kinds of tools that we could use are completely different. We have super low cost opportunities. We have cloud. We have the ability to deliver solutions not only previously unimaginable, but at a speed or at a scale that was previously unimaginable. You don't have to have a massive data center. You don't have to have a lot of infrastructure to get out there and deliver excellent solutions and deliver them quick. which means as an organization, knowing what we have, establishing the right platforms like Workday, and leveraging those platforms in a rapid sense to deliver value to our stakeholders and to our business partners. I think that's really what's become the era of digital transformation today. So I'm not surprised that traditional ERP systems are not flexible enough in an environment today that's moving at a rapid speed.
Right. So Ted, you talk about business partners and stakeholders. Obviously, you have your team, and it's a large team that you're working with every day, and the complexity of the way the world has changed certainly lends to a lot of the work you guys have to do. But you also have these stakeholders and these partners. So thinking about finance specifically, how do you get the finance team and the IT team to kind of partner together, across the business to, again, help you drive this transformation forward?
Certainly. In the past, IT was known as a cost center, right? And finance was known as the money police. And I say that affectionately, right? So going forward, though, these two organizations are completely different in this modern era, and they have to operate completely different for businesses to succeed. IT needs to first of all, make a compelling case for technology investments. All too often, IT goes to finance and says, I need these number of servers, I need this much bandwidth, all these kinds of technical talk, which really doesn't deliver any compelling reasoning to the finance group. So whatever IT can do to demonstrate real value to an organization, real business value in terms that are understandable to finance, the easier it is for finance to make that focus. I think it's also important for IT to be accurate in both the one-time and the ongoing costs. How often does finance hear IT give a number, change that number, find out that that number was a one-time number and now there's an ongoing number? So IT really needs to provide truth in advertising, which means IT is going to need to become able to speak finance. They're going to have to step out of some of their IT role and really understand how to connect and engage with their finance partners. On the flip side, finance really needs to understand that IT is how business is now done. IT is not a department. IT is how every department performs their functions and their features, especially in this post-pandemic, post-COVID world. Secondly, it's important for finance to understand the power of digital opportunities. When a digital opportunity in the market, with the customer, between partners becomes available, it's important for any business or any government to seize that digital opportunity as quickly as possible, which often starts with having platforms in place, having the right kinds of solutions and the right kind of understanding to take advantage of it. By finance understanding the power of digital opportunities and just how transformational it becomes to an organization, the more they can move at the speed of IT to deliver those kinds of features. As a CIO, I used to be effectively chief technology geek. Now I work with the CFO, I work with human resources, I work with marketing, I work with groups of people I didn't work with before, and it becomes really important for me to understand their language and for them to understand mine so we could really be effective as an organization.
Yeah, you hear all the time that people say every company's a technology company now, and you think about the city of Los Angeles, you guys are a technology company and have to continue to innovate. So thinking about that, and if there's one thing we've learned over the last couple of years, that it's very hard to predict the future. So I know you probably have a lot of top priorities that are on the list that you guys are working through now. Could you explain to us maybe some of those priorities as they exist today, and how you might think, again, taking your crystal ball out, aside from maybe another global pandemic, which, knock on wood, won't happen, how that's going to change over maybe the next 2 years or so?
Absolutely. I think the first one is digital transformation done right. I think in a lot of ways, when we all moved as a society and moved to as much telework as possible due to COVID, some things were hasty. And what I mean by hasty is people had to move fast. So they were often moving into platforms, into solutions that were good enough. But now that we've gotten past that phase, good enough isn't acceptable anymore. It's not good enough just to have something that's digital. It needs to be digital and optimized, AKA digital transformation done right. So we're moving into aspects where we're not only eliminating those manual processes that still might exist, we're integrating systems before that may not have been integrated. We're thinking about the entire business process from start to finish, and we're leveraging tools like Workday so that we can go ahead and create a seamless flow, so to speak, from start to finish. We're also focusing on user experience. It's not good enough just to be digital. It has to be something that's easy to understand, easy to use, and really empowers the user, because the user is ultimately the person who's going to not only demonstrate satisfaction, but let's say in the case of an employee, the user is someone where it really comes down to their effectiveness at their job. The second key priority really comes to what people have called the Great Resignation, but often I would call the Great Reflection, right? It used to be that a government job, if you announced, hey, there's a job available in government, people would line up around a block to get a government job. Those days are long gone. We are competing with all sorts of companies and all sorts of organizations, still very much in a world in which it's extremely competitive and people are jumping from opportunity to opportunity or getting multiple job opportunities every time they go to interview. So now we must compete as a government. And when we think about the Great Reflection, we think that people aren't just abandoning work, but they're reassessing what work means to them. They're reassessing what they want in work. It may be more money, but quite often it really comes down to what we'd call an employee value proposition. Why should you work for us? What value do you provide to us? But more importantly, what value does your employer provide to you? And that really impacts the way that we recruit. It impacts the way that we develop. It impacts how we retain employees, as well as things like succession planning. So going forward, digital transformation done right, as well as how we manage our workforce, our IT workforce during the Great Resignation and beyond, has been two top key priorities in this upcoming year or two.
So Ted, you have such, as we talked about, such a big, complex organization. It's the city of Los Angeles to boot, so there's a lot of eyes on you guys. You seem to have such a command for it. You seem to, have a good vision of where you're going. You seem to understand, the things that have worked in the past and not worked, partnering with other organizations. I think some of the IT leaders that are watching this are, can almost be overwhelmed by it. Is there any advice you can give to people that are out there that maybe have not been, in role as long and as comfortable, with their organization as you are? Is there anything that you think that they should be thinking about on a day-to-day basis? If there's one piece of advice you could give them?
Certainly. And thank you for the compliment, Patrick. Living in Los Angeles, it seems like everyone needs to know a little bit on how to surf. And if I were to create the analogy, my job is like surfing. And for those of you who've ever surfed, it's really not about how pretty you are. It's about staying on the board. And so as a CIO, it's about getting on top of a massive, challenging wave that changes direction, has various heights, et cetera. And it's really about staying on the board, because it's being under the board that's the problem. So if I were to provide one bit of advice to IT leaders out there, this is something that's really worked very well for me, especially in the last few years. And that is this simple quote: there's no such thing as technology projects. There's people projects with technology. So I'll repeat that. There's no such thing as technology projects. It's not about project management. It's not about user requirements. It's not about investments. It's not about coding and testing. It's really about people, getting people right, knowing what people want, knowing what they need, and then delivering the kinds of solutions that those same people can effectively use. So I found that the nature of the work I've done has shifted from being a chief technology geek and someone who understands all the technology to someone who has to understand people, to speak the language of people, because technology is really simply a tool. And if that tool can be effectively used by the people I work with, then I will have succeeded. And if they are ineffective at it, then I will have failed. I'm reminded of the fact that if you were to hand me the fanciest Porsche, and if you were to hand a professional race car driver a Toyota Camry or a Honda Civic, that they would probably have a faster lap time around a racetrack than I would, even though I have a much fancier vehicle. And the reality is, it's not so much how fancy the technology is or how fancy the car in this analogy is. It's really about the person who uses it. So anything I can do with technology to make people as effective as a race car driver with my technology, then that's really where I want to be. Because simply giving someone the finest piece of technology that they don't know how to use, can't use well, and is really much more of an obstacle for them than a blessing, then I'm really not delivering my job and delivering it well.
That's really great advice. Thanks, Ted. I think, obviously, like I said before, you have such a command, and I think the city of Los Angeles is very lucky to have you. You understand it's about the people there. You understand who your customer is. And I think that it means all the difference as you move forward. So I wanted to thank you for two things. One, for doing this with us today. We know you're very busy and taking your time out. We thank you very much for that. And two, for being such an incredible customer. The feedback that you give us, the way that you push us to be better, the way that you're constantly innovating has been fantastic for us. And we look forward to continuing to do it in the future with you. So thank you very much, Ted. And for the audience out there listening, thank you for tuning in today. And we invite you to join us again for our next episode of Workday Chats, and have a fantastic day, everybody.